What is going on, everyone? This is Organically David. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me on my journey as I strive to live organically and authentically in every way. As you know, this is the place to be for all things organic and all things holistic. Going to just jump right into it. If you haven't seen part 1 through 4, please go back on. You will see live under the live section. You will see part 1, and then part 2 through 4 you will see under the regular video section. And part 2 is kind of long, so I did break that up into several chapters so you can just jump right to the tip of the trick that I labeled in the description box below. But this one is kind of funny. This is kind of an add-on, but I wanted to talk about, as you see from the title, I'm talking about COVID, chemo, and of course, COVID is not funny, but to me, it is a little comical the way it all went down because you think about the way COVID all came about, 2019, it came, people really didn't see that it was all that serious. You're kind of like, maybe I should mask up, maybe I shouldn't. 2020 came around. That's when people started getting really ill. Some people were passing away. We start to say, okay, this is a little more serious now, so let's make sure we're going to mask up. And then we had our son, 2020. We make it through that. So we're being careful, just making sure that we're masking up, making sure that we do all the things that we're supposed to do, wash our hands, hand sanitizer, all that kind of stuff. But for me, who's a germaphobe anyway, I'm all about that life. I was hoping that everyone kept that same energy going into it, wiping everything down, keeping back 6 feet, all that kind of stuff, wiping down the elevator buttons, all of that. It was fine for me to see everyone kind of making sure that they stayed sanitary. So 2020 comes around, we're still being careful. 2021, we make it through that. And then 2022, as we talked about before in the previous videos, where we talked about the baby loss and the cancer diagnosis and all of that. So now we're kind of navigating that space of you're being careful because we had our son, so we want to make sure that he's okay, and then parents are up there in age, so you want to make sure that they're safe as well. And any type of comorbidities, you just want to be extra careful. So we were being careful anyway. And then especially now because it's going through chemo, that can affect your white blood count and all of that, which can be dangerous for you. So so we get to June or July, I believe it was July. We're done with almost done with the adriamycin cytoxin. I think we have one more round left. And around June, I think it was, I want to say it was somewhere around 4th of July, some after 4th of July. I know it was a Friday. I felt a little raspy. I thought maybe just because I had been on a conference call and I was talking a lot. So I just felt maybe that's what it was. On that Saturday, I felt perfectly fine. Sunday came around, and that's when I woke up that day feeling I had a headache, which is very odd for me. I don't get headaches like that. I don't ever, rarely ever have a headache. If you're talking about pains, usually in my back or my knees or something like that. But the headaches just not really a thing for me. And also, I was still a little sleepy. So something that's very abnormal for me, I went back to sleep on purpose. And so I think I slept for maybe about 30 minutes. I woke up, I didn't have a headache. But when I woke up, I still felt a little sluggish. I wouldn't say I felt bad, or I just felt a little off. So I said, considering everything that's going on, let me just go ahead and test myself. I had a bunch of rapid tests, tested myself, and it instantly came up black. I said, no, 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 no. Can't be COVID. So I test myself again, and a third time, and all 3 times it came up positive quick. I mean, it was super quick. And so at that point, I told my wife, I put the mask on. I don't know how, don't know what happened, but I got COVID. How in the heck do I have COVID? That just doesn't make any sense. I was masking up. I was doing all the stuff that I was supposed to do. And I was thinking back for the last 14 days where I had been, who I've been around, anybody who was symptomatic, and I couldn't pinpoint anywhere. There's two places that I think are the culprits, but I'm not 100% sure. I know that that strain during that time frame was very contagious, so it could have happened. It could have came across it anywhere, and you feel kind of like you've you've avoided it for this long, and then now all of a sudden to get it almost 3 years later in the process in the it was just a surprise. So go lock myself down for the apparently the 14 days you're supposed to lock yourself down. It was on a Sunday, so I didn't go to get officially tested until Tuesday when I went to CVS. And those those 2 days that I was in that room locked down were it was very difficult. Difficult not because of COVID, because honestly, I felt fine. A matter of fact, if I was an irresponsible person, I could have just went out and just been living life normally. I felt a little sluggish, little fatigued, but not enough for it to. Had if COVID wasn't a thing, I wouldn't have known that I needed to quarantine, I guess. And so those 2 days of knowing that my wife had to do everything. She was with my son, who's a toddler, who was just full of life and running and doing all this stuff, and knowing that she had to do it all was really really tough for those 2 days, just being stuck in that room for 2 days. And then on Wednesday came around, wife opened the door, no mask on or anything, and said, "Yep, I got COVID." And of course, she had COVID. And Tuesday, I already got that test. On Wednesday, she tested positive. And she said she started to feel a little raspy, but again, not anything extreme. It just kind of felt like you had a little bit of a cold or whatever. And you don't you, the fear of COVID was more so the fact that you didn't know how it was going to affect you. Some people were perfectly fine, asymptomatic, nothing. And then there were other people who were passing away because of it. Or they were somewhere in the middle. They were having other issues with their lungs or their heart or their kidneys. It was affecting their organs. So you didn't know how it was going to impact you personally. So that's where I think the little bit of the fear came from. And it was weird that so many people were almost prideful about whether they didn't get it or when they got the vaccine and others didn't get it. And and I got the vaccine. Did you get it? All of that is it's just kind of weird to me how that became a thing in this process. But my wife went to the clinic, got tested. She tested positive for COVID, of course, and then she also tested positive for the flu. So she had the double whammy: COVID, flu, maybe the triple whammy, and going through chemo at the same time. So uh, that was its own journey there. My son tested positive as well. So we were the COVID family. Matter of fact, my neighbors next door, they tested positive. We saw them outside. They were kind of like, stand back. They said, don't worry about it. We got it too. So we had our own little circle where at least it allowed us to be able to interact with each other during that time frame. But when we're talking about cancer and chemo more specifically, you would think that interesting thing for me was that the doctors and everyone seemed rather unfazed by it. They're like, okay, well, let's look at your chart. They looked at her chart, saw that her white blood cell count always remained at normal or higher. So they're like, okay, well, you can just come in for treatment, but you got to go to a different wing. You had to go down there by yourself. You can't have anybody with you. No cold capping. No, none of that. You just had to go in there and do it by yourself, and then you get to go. So we decided to postpone it until we were cleared after, I believe it was 20 days. We just had to wait until that was fully out of her system, and then she was able to do the regular chemotherapy in the regular room and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's important. I would definitely tell you your mental health is very important along the process, along the way. We talked about that with the cold capping and why you want to stick to that. If you can afford it, if you can do it, if it's something that I would definitely say again to really express that push that point is that your mental health throughout this journey is extremely important, and you want to do everything that you possibly can to feel and look normal. So that's why we did chose to do the cold capping. We talked about that before already. But so when you have COVID, you're thinking about, you don't know how you're going to end up. Are you going to be in the hospital bed? Are you going to be in a prone position? Are you going to all this stuff that's going to happen? But there's so many studies out there that have linked it. You can even look at, it doesn't matter what political party it belongs to, whatever. But Dr. Fauci even talked about it, the link between lower levels of vitamin D and poor outcomes when you have low levels of vitamin D. Because we had already been taking higher dose of vitamin D, and we talked about with how that affected my wife's MS as well as her journey throughout this process. Uh, Taking high levels of vitamin D specifically for inflammation, it impacts, it helps reduce your inflammation significantly. And I think that has been the, not only does the research shows that vitamin D it helps you through the COVID process and healing and making sure that it's not as bad. But I think it definitely reduced the duration of of the symptoms. Like I said, if it wasn't for the flu, my wife wouldn't have had any symptoms. My son just bounced. He maybe was down for a day, and he was back to normal, being himself. And he's also taking a lot of vitamin D. So vitamin D is definitely something that should be in your cabinet, something you should take all the time. We talked about that vitamin D3, as well as getting out in the sun. It's You got to get in the sunlight. 20 minutes a day is all it takes to get 10,000 IU. You got to make sure that 40% of your skin is showing. So, if you have a t-shirt and shorts on, just being out there for about 20 minutes will give you about 10,000 international units of vitamin D. As well as if you're taking a supplement, especially on those days where you're stuck in the office or you're inside a lot, you want to make sure you're getting enough every day. And then when you're taking high levels of vitamin D, you also want to take vitamin K2. That is to help with the extra calcium production in your body. You want to make sure that calcium gets in the right place. It goes into your bones, your teeth, and the places that it needs to be versus in your bloodstream. So it doesn't have to be a death sentence. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't always have to be scary. Of course, it's very unique to us. It may be a totally different scenario for you, but if you're taking vitamin D, it definitely will help you throughout the process. So it's something to take as a preventative measure. You can't just get COVID and all of a sudden you're taking vitamin D. That's not really the way it works. It may help, but that's not the way it works. You've got to make sure you have your fat stores of vitamin D already together before you go through. So just take some vitamin D and it'll help your body. Or just get outside, get some sun. That's really it. We don't get outside enough anyway. We got even when we had COVID, we were getting out there, getting our steps in. I may not have been as fast, but I still was asymptomatic only a few days afterwards. So that was our journey. That's what we went through with COVID and chemo. It didn't really postpone anything. It was just by choice. I know that's not everyone's story. Again, it's very unique to you and very unique to our situation, but that is something that you can do is just increase your level of vitamin D. Turmeric is also one as well. but you got to be careful with turmeric if you're on certain types of chemo. So you want to make sure you check that or research that before you start taking it. Vitamin D is a little more universal. That's something that you get naturally anyway. It's something that you can do. So again, please comment down below anything you want to talk about. Anything doesn't matter. It doesn't have to also be always be cancer based or anything like that. That's just something that I share with you all because that's very fresh in my memory, in my mind, and I wanted to get that out because I know it impacts so many people. And being that we are cancer free in the maintenance stage, and we're just going moving forward, and our trajectory is so great, and the prognosis is so great. I wanted to share that with you because hopefully you're able to join us on that journey. You have that same testimony that you are now cancer free, that you don't have to worry about the next stage, the cancer, the this, the that, whatever, the chemo and this and all of that other kind of stuff. You can just go on and live life. And if you don't remember anything else that I said, please remember to always, always love life